It's a pleasure to be here. And Fernanda, thank you very much for reading my little biog on the website. I recognize it, so somebody's read it, so thank you for doing that. And I'm acutely aware that I'm really the bit between you and all the interesting stuff, so I'll try and keep this as short as possible. As Fernanda said, we've been going through a bit of a change this past couple of years, but it is finished. Apparently, the now almost mythological kind of transition of Jisc is complete. And we've been through this sort of change. And I'm also very aware that there's a whole bunch of you in the room who also been through or going through your own transformations, so some of this might be terribly familiar to you, really. So we've got a new funding model, we have a new membership arrangement, we have a new organisation for the group, we have an alignment between all the various previous bits of subsidiary companies and the main part of the organisation, and we have a nice new shiny strategic framework to guide us all by for the next few years. And so all that change has kind of happened, and the next really, rather critical part of what we do is to try to make our actual business and our activity as good as it can possibly be, and to move away from the rather tiresome but important stuff about organisational change. So a little tick chart of things that we've been up to, some of which I've mentioned, and we're kind of really at that point now where we're going to be focusing on trying to make sure that people understand the value of what Jisc as a whole organisation, and organisations like the RSC in Scotland in particular, what we're about, and making sure that there's a real case with you as customers for going forward, and that we're doing the sorts of things which you value and find important and want us to continue doing. After all, we're still in a rather turbulent environment. So just a few of our priorities. But actually, this isn't a priority. This is a consequence. This is something which leads up to our priorities. We're all suffering that sort of chart, I suspect. And certainly for us, over the next few years, will be our budget will be nearly 35% less than it was back in 2012, and that does bring about an absolute necessity for change. And it brings about a real focus on those things which are really important to you and to the sectors. So that's a little bit of our background, probably shared with you. I also noticed you ran our little animation at the beginning, so thank you for doing that. And so you will have seen the mission statement there. But what we're really about is trying to make sure that universities, colleges and skills providers get the very best out of what we already have available, what's currently in our kind of product and service portfolio, but that we also continue to invest in those things which are going to be important for the future, making sure there's a balance on those two sorts of activities. And in terms of our priority threads for the next year, the first one is the most important one, is that engagement process. How do we work with people like you, with funders, with partner organisations, representative bodies across the sectors? How do we engage with the sectors that we serve? And it's about trying to make sure we do that as efficiently and as effectively as we can. And the technology presence, I think, is something which we have kind of, I suppose in the last few years, lost a little bit of a thread on, in terms of actually what technology itself can mean for the things that we do and the organisations that we run in. So there's going to be a renewed focus on up-and-coming technology, how that can make a genuine impact on your work. And like everybody else in the world, we're focusing on ourselves a bit to try to make sure that we're doing that in the best possible way as an organisation. When it comes to the engagement strand, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but there are three things which I think are most important to us. One is this stakeholder engagement. I think, as we've changed, what we've done is rather unwittingly disrupted all those mechanisms that were established for how individuals and organisations and groups can work with us and understand how they connect with us, and we need to rebuild that. The front of house reshaping thing has been going on for a little while, and it might be of some interest to some of you in the room here. And what we're trying to do there is to redesign all of our front of house activity, really for the best use of our customer base. A little bit more on that in a moment. And something which is quite dear to my heart, which is the kind of unified brand and web presence. We did a little bit of work and looked at how many websites we have, and when we got to 65 different websites, we stopped counting. We thought that was probably quite enough. So there's a big strand of work there to make sure that our web presence as an organisation is streamlined and effective, and actually is easy for people to use. 65 websites doesn't make life very easy for people when they come to try to find things. So there's a big strand of work there. The value and efficiency thing. Some of this is a little bit internal for us, but I mean, I suspect it's still in your line of sight. So the subsidiary company issue is something which we're pursuing to make sure that we drive out the efficiencies out of that. I know we have colleagues from Adina here today, but we're also in the process of bringing in the MIMUS organisation back into the heart of the organisation alongside Adina up here in Edinburgh. And we're trying to get much better in terms of metrics and analytics so that we can actually tell you what's happening in your organisations using the stuff that we provide, which we're quite poor at the moment. I mentioned the technology strand. I think you'll see an increasing focus on that from us in proper technology. And as I said, in terms of us as an organisation, those sorts of things which will be very common knowledge to you from your own organisations. In terms of the front of house activity, it's all about trying to be easier to do business with. I mentioned the 65 websites. I think we also have quite a few helplines. I mean, we got to 32 on that count and stopped counting there. 32 helplines didn't sound very helpful. And so there's a whole raft of work about trying to be much more focused on how it's easy to work with us and do business with us. And really focused around customer need. What do people like you actually need from us? What do you need us to do to help make your businesses and your lives easier? So there's a real focus on that in terms of the front of house activity. Geographically, we obviously will continue to be a UK-based organisation, but we will focus on the 4 countries of the current UK. I think you've got a little vote coming up in September, which might affect that a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. So what we'll be doing in the front of house stuff is making sure that we're vertically aligned across the whole of the group so that all of the Jisc activity is aligned within each of those countries so that everyone can see what we have to offer, how you can use it and how you can get benefit out of it. And also we'll be making sure that we address all of the sectors. At the moment we're a little bit schizophrenic about that. Sometimes it's HE, sometimes it's FE, sometimes a bit of both of those, sometimes we do some skills. We have to be consistent about that, and so you'll find a consistency coming out of the reshaped organisation. And the experts, I mean, there's a few. I noticed Jason with his trademark kilt sitting on my table over here. So, we already have a great army of experts across the organisation, but we're not yet able to deploy them all properly all the time across all of our sectors. And so that's something which we'll also be focusing down on. There's a nice little list of what we think are benefits, but I'm not going to read through those. But it's about making sure that what we do front of house, what you see out of our organisation helps you as individuals in an organisation. You can derive best benefit out of that. And it's about building on the things which are already good. We have lots of good things in the organisation, but we do have some bits which aren't quite so shiny, and we need to make sure that everything is up to the same standard and the same quality across all of our geographical spaces. And here in Scotland, I mean, I got sent a whole raft of stuff that we're doing in Scotland, which actually would have taken all the morning. So I didn't list that for you. But it was interesting and heartening to see that actually there's already, as we well know, a great welter of activity that takes place in Scotland. Not least through Fionnuala and her team here at the RSC, but also our colleagues from Jisc Legal and Adina here as other local examples. I also asked somebody to look up the Jisc mail lists and kind of how many of those are Scottish based, and we got to over 200. So I think you might be using things like the Jisc mail quite extensively. And also, I know we're very anxious and keen and have a good track record in providing real practical training events through organisations like NetSkills as an example. But I know also you do that here through the RSC as well. And I also understand that, so there are people here from Borders College today, and I know there's some exciting stuff going on. I'm hoping to sit on that session there, but I think working with organisations like Borders College is also an example of how we want to work with people to develop stuff together, co-create activity. And there's also a project just about to take off, I believe, in terms of the digital student experience, particularly in HE here in Scotland. So there's already a whole raft of stuff, and you can see it around the exhibition hall. There's a whole bunch of things there which are Jisc related and Jisc connected. But all of those things are about engaging and embedding activity in institutions so you actually get some practical, tangible benefit out of it. And that's, I think, the power. You can look around, how many people come to... I think back in England, I don't think we could do a conference on a Friday. I don't think people would turn up like this on a Friday. So there's obviously something particular about you that either means that Friday's a good day for bacon butties, or it's a real commitment to taking this stuff forward. But that shared learning and experience, I think, is something which runs through all that we do. And I think is something which is characteristic and different about what we do together in this technology space for education. And the supporting creative, innovative use of technology. I mean, I can see some bits of glass here which are going to be handed out later on. And again, I think things like that are absolutely critical, not only to generating that enthusiasm to use technology, but also to recognize when it works and how it's beneficial. So, looking on the RC website about all the repository of the stuff that you've had from previous sets of those awards, there's a real bank of useful, practical information there about how individuals and organizations can take that technology forward and make a real difference. So for us going forward, I hope we don't need to say it, but I will say it, to renew our commitment to Scotland, irrespective of what you do in September in terms of your voting, it's an important space for us. But change is a given. Change happens to you every day, and it happens to us all the time. And so what we do will not stand still. There will be change. But that change is driven from a desire and a need to make sure that what we do is better for the people who use the products and services that we provide. We are committed to making sure that every university, every college and every key service provider has access to the full range of stuff that Jisc has available in a way that probably they never have done previously. And you'll see that when that comes through in our reshaping the front of house activity. And I can't really tell you about that today. I'm not quite in the right place to do that. But at the end of the month, we'll be starting to make those communications about how we'll be reshaping that front of house work going forward for the rest of the year. So, as a quick update from me, and now I'll let you get on to the really interesting stuff. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a really good day. The program looks really exciting, and I think the guys at the RC have done a tremendous job in building an exciting program, squishing it into one day. So I hope you have a good day. I hope you take lots of learning away and lots of practical stuff, and we come back and see you again shortly. Thank you very much.